I sold my company for $43 million and decided to celebrate with my son and his wife. I booked a table at the best restaurant in town. While they went to dance a slow dance, a security guard came up to me and said, "I saw him pour something into your juice." So, I got up and left. 20 minutes later, if you're watching this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. "I'm selling Ashford Technologies," I said to my son Marcus. And the old oak bar in my living room took the news without creaking. Marcus looked at the glass as if the answer might be inside it. "You can't be serious, Dad." His voice was sharp enough to nick the air. I set the shaker down, slid the Manhattan across. I kept water for myself. I've learned what late nights do to a man who's been around as long as I have. Paperwork's underway, a clean sale, no debt, no mess. Serena pretended to be taking notes on a little pad. She always pretended to be taking notes and smiled without her eyes. "You've built a legacy, Rob. Maybe think on it." The honey was there and the steel under it. She'd worn that tone to my tablet often enough. "I've thought on it for 3 years, I said. "It's time." Marcus paced, hands cutting the room like he was carving a path out of the decision. "What about my position, my future?" He wanted to say our. He always wanted to say our. "You'll have severance, momentum, and time." I said, "You're smart enough to stand on your own 2 feet if you decide to use them." He took a sip to buy himself a moment. The ice knocked the glass like a small bell. "This is the family business." I kept my face calm the way I did through product failures and hostile quarters. "Listen, it's the business I built to support a family. That's different." Serena's pen moved faster. She never wrote this quickly when we discussed software. I reached for the folder on the bar and tapped the top sheet. More for myself than them. Numbers lined up the way they do when a life's work finally says you did it. The offer is straightforward. The buyer knows what he's doing. "Who?" Marcus asked. "Westfield Systems." I didn't say how quickly their due diligence was going or how much it impressed me to see my work looked at cleanly, professionally, without the flattery that wastes everyone's time. I've never cared for flattery. You can't deploy it to production. My son sank into the leather chair by the windows and stared at the city like it might blink first. The skyline didn't. "You're 68, he said as if age were an indictment. "You could run this 10 more years." "I could," I said. "I don't want to." I felt the truth of it all the way down to my shoes. My knees agreed. So did the spot between my shoulders that's been tight for 30 years. We let the quiet fill in what we weren't going to say to one another. I picked up my watch, the one I bought to celebrate the first million and forgot to wear, and buckled it on for the first time. It felt like a small ceremony. "I've got a meeting tomorrow to set the timeline," I told them. "Let's have dinner after and toast the next chapter." Serena brightened on cue. "Skyline Terrace." "Terrace 8, I said. "We'll sit where the breeze can find us." Kinetic beats are supposed to be for young men, but old men can have them, too. The next afternoon, I stood in the conference room I designed to feel important and found I respected the man across from me. Graham Westfield's handshake was firm, not rehearsed. His questions respected the work. He knew what clean code looks like and what bad migrations do to good people. Nobody needed to posture. We both knew the value. $43 million, he said, sliding the final term sheet with an open palm. The number might as well have been a country. You could live there. Cash, he added, as if that part weren't the only part that still makes old men blink. "It's fair," I said. "We didn't have to pretend it was a gift. We signed the interim agreements, aligned the transition, and shook on the future." My assistant brought champagne. I took a polite sip because that's what you do when people gather joyfully around something that took a lifetime. When the room cleared, I stood at the window, watched the late light burnish the city, and felt lighter. I was a man who had taken his hands off the wheel, and discovered the car could stop at an overlook he had never let himself see. I texted Marcus. "It's done. Celebrate tonight." His reply came fast. "Proud of you, Dad. I've learned to read tone the way I read code comments. What's said, what's implied, what's hidden between the words." I told myself to take it at face value because a man deserves a hopeful glass once in a while. Skyline Terrace glowed like it understood evenings. Lanterns strung across the pergola made road maps of light. The city below blurred into something soft. Marcus met me under the awning and hugged me like a son in a photograph. Serena kissed my cheek and held on half a heartbeat too long. "You look younger," she said. "Success trims 10 years, I said. "So does sleeping." We took the table at the rail. A quartet set up near the bar. The pianist testing out a scale like a secret. The waiter knew my face and didn't make a fuss. I ordered a glass of wine and an orange juice because there are nights your heart appreciates a belt and nights it doesn't. Marcus raised his glass. "To you," he said, "to doing it right." We clinked. The sound rang clean. "We'll travel," I said, surprising even myself with how freely the we came out. "I want to see some trees that weren't planted by a grounds crew. I want to sit on a bench nobody named." Serena leaned forward, the pad on the table like a napkin. "Japan," she said. She always had a list of places people like us were supposed to go. 6 weeks, maybe longer, I said. "I hear time has a different speed there." The music drifted into something dancers understand without thinking. Serena touched Marcus's arm. "Come on," she whispered. "That one's for us." They stood and for a moment I saw my boy as he'd been in an 8th grade gym waiting for courage. He'd found it now that a woman had handed him hers. I watched them, the way you do when the people you love become beautiful while you sit still. The juice glass sweated a ring onto the linen. I pushed it aside and reached for the wine. The quartet slid into a second tune, slower. Serena's dress moved like light. A man in a dark suit took up a position near the rail. Not a waiter, not management. He scanned the room with the kind of attention you notice only if you've spent years noticing small things. He kept his hands in front of him, polite, ready. When I looked at him, he looked back for exactly long enough to be sure I'd seen him. Then he came to my table. "Mr. Ashford?" he asked, not loudly. "Yes." "Security," he said, touching a badge by his belt the way a man does when he's about to deliver something you won't like. I wouldn't drink from that glass again. There are sentences that flip a switch in your chest. "Why?" The word felt slow. I saw the young man add something to it while you were watching the band. His voice was level, careful. Small vial, clear cap. My body, which has hauled me through trade shows and funerals and blizzards of red-eye flights, went very, very still. I glanced at the dance floor. Marcus's back was to me, his hand at Serena's waist like he'd practiced. The quartet hit a chord that sounded like the edge of a cliff. "You're certain?" I said. I watched his hands, he said. "I'm sorry. I've trained myself not to go white. Men my age don't get that luxury. We either breathe or we don't." I breathed. "Thank you," he nodded. "Want me to call the police?" "No," I said instantly and then softer. "Not yet. I've sat in enough rooms to understand the difference between reaction and plan. If the house is going to burn, you grab the deeds first." He eased back to his post. I took stock of what I had. Jacket, wallet, phone, pill bottle with my heart meds, small screw top, clean. The glass sat close, sweating like it knew it had a secret. I unscrewed the bottle under the table, slid the glass over, and poured a careful inch of juice into plastic. It made the quietest sound in the world. The plant beside our table was all leaves and good intentions. I watered it with the rest of the juice casually, one-handed, like a man fussing with something to keep from fidgeting. The linen soaked, then the soil. Nobody watches an old man fuss. By the time Marcus and Serena reached the table, the pill bottle was back in my inside pocket, and the glass was empty. "We should do this more often," Marcus said, pulling out Serena's chair. His face glowed with the kind of satisfaction that used to make me proud before I learned to read it. "Beautiful," I said. "You two looked good out there." My voice sounded like mine. That felt like a small miracle. "Where'd your juice go?" he asked. His eyebrows barely moved. "I saw the flicker anyway." "Finished it while you danced," I said. Old men get thirsty watching beautiful things. We ate just enough to keep the evening from tipping over into ceremony. Serena offered dessert. "Another time," I said, getting to my feet and setting cash on the tray. "Long day." I kissed her cheek and hugged my son. The world tilted right there in my arms. I held on a fraction too long and then let go. I love you both, I said, because a man should not leave a room like this without putting that down where it can't be argued with later. Dad, Marcus began. Stay, I said. Finish the wine. Dance another one. I put a hand on the rail as if to steady myself, then walked out under the string lights like any man after any dinner. Mr. Torres met me near the entry. You handled that well, he said quietly. You kept me alive, I said. If you ever need a reference, you have one. Do you want someone to walk you out? I'll be fine. I took the stairs because my legs needed to do something. The night air had cooled into that clean place between seasons where a man can think. I crossed the avenue with more care than I had yesterday. I don't know if the city was louder or if I could finally hear it. I called the concierge from the sidewalk. It's Ashford in 24A, I said. Please remove my son from the access list immediately. If he or his wife arrive, call me first and call building security. No one gets a FOB. No exceptions. Yes, Mr. Ashford, he said. He didn't ask why. Men in his job learned quickly not to. Back upstairs, I used every lock on my door and felt each one seat. I emptied my refrigerator of anything already opened, tossed the bottles with a grim little efficiency I seemed to have been saving for exactly this night. I set the pill bottle on my desk under the lamp and stared at it. Vitamin C with something else. The light made it look harmless. Poison often does. I poured 2 fingers of scotch and let it sit while I breathed. The drink and I watched each other. From my windows, the park lay dark and honest. Funny how quickly a man stops naming a city. It becomes a shape again, a map of lights and shadow. Once you learn the names in your house might not be the names for what they truly are. The phone buzzed. Marcus. I answered because not answering would have given away more than I wanted to give. Where'd you go? He asked. Concern close to convincing. You left quick. Felt off, I said. Home now. Do you need a doctor? He pushed the word with his tongue like he was testing a sore tooth. We could. I'm fine, I said. It came out steady. Big day. I'm turning in. Okay, he said. Rest up. He didn't say love you. I didn't ask him to. I stood by the window until the glass cooled the heat in my forehead. I thought of Catherine the night we had $30 in checking and a rent due that would have made a banker laugh. We got through that one together because we were on the same side of the ledger. Tonight wasn't like that. Tonight I learned my boy had entered his balance on the wrong column of the page. I wrote 3 lines on a legal pad. Lab, lawyer, locks. Tomorrow would get the first 2. Tonight belonged to the third. I moved through the condo and did the kind of inventory a man does when he finally admits he's not immortal. Identities, safes, the file with my travel itinerary that I had been building in secret so I could surprise myself. I slid it into the safe next to the bottle, took a picture of the contents, and closed the steel with a click that felt like a full stop. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it brought a clean, hard dream. I was walking down a path lined with trees nobody had landscaped and nobody knew my name. The wind moved through the leaves like applause for someone else. I woke before dawn, older and calm, a man with a list and a reason, which is the most dangerous kind of old man you can be if you happen to have 43 million reasons to live. Before the sun cleared the roof lines, I called a private lab and an attorney I trust more than my mirrors. After the calls, I leaned my forehead to the cool window. Down in the street, a delivery truck idled and a man in a red jacket hopped out and hoisted a stack of crates like he had all the time in the world. He probably does, I thought. I still do, too. I just seen how quickly that can be taken if you let someone else pour your drinks. I dressed in the suit that fits me best and slid the watch onto my wrist. Today would be work again, but a clean kind, not the kind that steals your family dinners, the kind that saves your life and your name. I pocketed the little plastic bottle and felt its weight against my ribs. It felt like a verdict I hadn't yet rendered. It felt strangely like mercy toward myself, which is the one person on this earth I finally understand how to protect. Outside the day was bright enough to forgive a man anything. I locked the door behind me and tested it twice. Old habits, new ones, too. If a day starts with a list, you can still save it. Mine had 3 items: lab, lawyer, locks. By noon, I was under white lights that make any corridor look like the truth. The intake clerk at the private lab had been trained not to be surprised by anything. I set a small vial on the counter, the label I'd written at 5 a.m. orange juice. 1 ounce, Skyline Terrace 2013. She pulled on gloves without TV drama. I need full chain of custody, I said. Priority analysis. We'll process it, Mr. Ashford, she said. But machines move at 1 speed for everyone. I'm paying for human speed, not machine speed, I said, sliding my card over. And I want the shift lead signature. Her face stayed polite. Men my age are easier to agree with than fight. 5 minutes later, a chemist appeared. Calm voice, dark eyes, badge I didn't catch. Stainless room, forms on clipboards. We'll take aliquots, he said. Secure storage until analysis. I can share prelims late this afternoon, but prelims aren't conclusions. I understand. I want truth, not headlines and signatures. While he signed, the tightness in my chest eased. Not peace, but the outline of it bold enough to trace. I pick lawyers for one trait. They have to tell me things I don't want to hear in a way that makes me listen. Diana Chen is exactly that. Her office faced the sky instead of the city. The right geometry for someone who works in consequences. Start with facts, she said as the door clicked shut. Only facts you can prove, not feel. I have a security witness, I said. I have a sample being tested. I have a son who stared at an empty glass too carefully. Good, she nodded. Here's the plan. We put fire breaks between you and anything that could catch. Money, access, estate docs, legal notices. Ready to revoke every power of attorney you ever gave family? Ready. She slid a folder across. First, notify your building and any security vendor of new protocols. Done. Second, banking. We'll park liquidity in attorney escrow while we draft a trust. Temporary. Today. Today, if the banks let us. A thin smile. You know how banks love slowness. We signed what could be signed in an hour. She worked fast like someone who gave up on convenient timing years ago. At the door, she stopped me with a hand. Robert, she said plain. We don't know anything final yet. Stick to facts. Don't call your son with questions you aren't ready to hear answers to. Speak to him like a direct report you haven't fired. I can hold a steady voice, I said. I told investors for 25 years that everything was under control. That earned a real smile. Tell yourself again. Banks don't walk or run. They move like glacier and grind cities the same way. On screen, my private banker looked caring, but her voice rang the old bells. Policy, compliance, weekend, limits. You previously instructed us otherwise. What instruction? I asked. A year ago, you authorized that transfers over 5 million require confirmation by a trusted party. Whom? Your son, she said, glancing off camera. Standard practice, Mr. Ashford, in case you're not in good form. So that's what my form was for. Heat rose to my ears. I sent it back down. My attorney is sending a letter rescinding that now, I said. In the meantime, prepare a cashier's check for pickup today. Today is difficult, she said. And she vanished from frame, returned. We received a profile change request at 7:30 a.m. from your apartment's IP. I froze it, but the system already notified the trusted party. Good that you froze it, I said. Bad that you notified. Prep the check. When the call ended, Diana's office quiet was thick as leather. She was already dictating phrases from a fire manual. Immediately, revoke, confirm in writing. We'll have a few hours, she said, hanging up. Maybe less. You pick up the check. No unnecessary electronic footprints. Agreed. One more thing. I want a safe deposit box for the vial. I'm reserving 2, she said. Different branches. The branch smelled like cold coffee and old promises. The manager held the check like it might bite. I looked at the amount. Big numbers don't impress me when they're on the right side of the dash, but this one looked like a tool you could cut a door with. Sign here and here, she said. Your counsel's notice arrived. We've waived the extra confirmation this time. Going forward only after your profile is updated. It will be updated today, I said. After that, all notices go to me and my counsel. She nodded the way people nod at men who say today in a bank. I slid the check into my inner pocket and felt like a chess player who finally took the queen off a board everyone could see. Now it was my piece, my move, my rules. At the door, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, familiar shape. Message built like a smile for the camera. Dad, Serena and I thought we might stop by tonight. Talk. Feels like things are hanging in the air. Love you. Love you hung at the end like a coat on the wrong hook. I exhaled and didn't reply. Replying is playing to their tempo. I needed mine. Safe deposit boxes seem simple until you hold the keys and realize they remember. Box 1, the vial and document copies. Box 2, copies of revocations and one very old photo I've carried 30 years and for the first time decided to store. Not shame, strategy. I'm learning what people betray first. It's rarely money. Escort to your car, Mr. Ashford? Mr. Patel asked as I left. No, I said. I'm old, not heavy. Outside, the wind had the right temperature you normally only notice at a cabin, not in a city. Diana's driver rolled up, a modest grey sedan. The car you move thinkers in, not sinners. The lab called, Diana said on speaker as I got in. Prelims in 20 minutes. Go. Dr. Ellis's voice was straight as a ruler. We detected a short-acting benzodiazepine, he began, combined with alcohol. Strong sedative. And he paused. The car got quieter. Trace warfarin. A blood thinner, I said. Yes, in combination with possible cardiac meds. Risky. We aren't drawing conclusions. Full report tonight. But this doesn't look like a prank. I understand, I said. Thank you for the clean read. When the line died, Diana gripped the wheel like it was someone's throat. This isn't accidental, Robert, she said. We don't say maybe anymore. Good, I nodded. Next step is notifying the buyer. He needs to know I'm alive and sober. I'll draft it. You go home and remove anything that could become your bottles, she said. And the check, hand it to me. Escrow will be open by 5. The envelope felt heavier passing to her than it had at the branch. Home met me with scents I hadn't named in decades. Thin shadows of coffee, dust, books, and that other thing found in places where people haven't cried in a long time. I opened the windows, turned on lights in every room like I was inspecting a rental. Only I'm the landlord, and tomorrow's version of me is the tenant. I washed and tossed every open bottle. Took out the trash with the efficiency you usually reserve for guilt. Then I wrote a smaller list. Lock change today. Cameras today. Hallway security temporary. Concierge instructions. Repeat in writing. The screen lit up. Incoming. Marcus. I answered because not answering gives away too much. You home? Concern. Custom made. Yes. We'll swing by in 20. Need to talk. Not today, I said. I have things to do. What things, Dad? After a day like this, he smiled with his voice. We're worried. Don't be. I held a beat. If you want to talk tomorrow at Diana's office, she's coordinating. 2 seconds of silence on his end cost more than most speeches. You need a lawyer to talk to your own son, he asked. Something real finally seeping in. I need order, I said. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock. If you don't come, I'll assume you don't need to. I marked meeting possible storm in my calendar and closed the laptop as carefully as a piano lid. The lab's full report arrived that evening. Dry, my favorite seasoning. Warfarin confirmed. Benzo confirmed. Concentrations a prosecutor wouldn't laugh at. Chain of custody immaculate. More signatures than one of my product release sheets. I put copies in both boxes, a third in the safe. The vial went into box 1 beside a flash drive with restaurant camera footage, courtesy of Mr. Torres after a short conversation and a long look. At 5, Diana confirmed escrow funded. We both felt the burning bridge at our backs shorten. Now for the legal fire breaks, she said. POA revocations are out. Bank notices, too. Private security will watch your haul through the week. One more. Don't sleep at home. You're afraid for me. I work in probabilities, she said. Today I don't like them. I looked around my living room. No extra objects, no extra people, and still the feeling the walls were listening. Fine. I've got an address not even my itinerary knows, I said, in case I ever wanted to disappear from good people. Turns out sometimes you need it for not so good. The hotel I used in long ago conference years has what I like. Nameless respect. Key under a name only I remember. Room without smart tricks. Window to the quiet side. I set down a suitcase that hadn't existed this morning and finally let myself sit on the bed's edge. Phone buzz, unknown. If you want to keep your family, stop doing stupid things. Talk at home tonight alone. I read it twice, forwarded to Diana. Her reply was crisp. Saved, logged, ignore. Tomorrow 11. Either way. I set the phone on the nightstand like it wasn't a grenade. Took off the watch, the one I first wore yesterday. Flipped it over, read the engraving for the first million. Today, it felt like a smile from a man I used to be and need to become again. I laid it beside the phone and poured water, plain, like a proper signature at the end of the right letter. That night, I dreamed a corridor, long white as in the lab. At the end, a door marked fire exit. I pushed through and stepped not into stairs, but into a woods. Unlandscaped trees, unapologetic ground, wind speaking without subtitles. I woke before the alarm and knew I didn't want to find out what happens if you stay in the corridor. Morning brought a short clarity. Breakfast without brands. A call to a locksmith. By noon, my door would have new hearts. 2 for now. Cameras in transit. Concierge got a second letter. This one on Diana's letterhead. I photographed the lock boxes. Not out of fear, out of habit. Anything that matters should exist in 2 places. At 10, I stood in her lobby with a thin folder. Everything that convinces better than words. Lab report, chain of custody, revocations, escrow confirmation, screenshots. Diana looked at me like a patient who came on time and followed prep. Will they show? She asked. They will, I said. They need time to agree on a version. Versions are always worse than truth. Sometimes worse is useful. She nodded. Good. We aren't going to court today. We're going to order. I'll be there. But you talk. You are the best witness in the case of your life. I glanced at my hands. They held the folder like they held a steering wheel the first night I took the highway. Not tight, but sure. I hadn't planned to be this kind of man at this age, but no one schedules a fire. All right, I said. We'll start with facts. They arrived at 11 sharp, the way people do when they want to look decent. Marcus on the right, Serena on the left, notebook on the table, smile that eats light. Diana introduced herself and offered coffee. No one wanted any. Good. We weren't trusting that liquid today. We're worried about Dad, Marcus began, parking his voice on something parental. He left the restaurant without a word. He won't let us in the apartment. We're family. I set down one sheet, the chain of custody, then the second, the lab findings, then the third, a bank letter revoking the trusted party. Last night, someone added something to my drink, I said evenly. There's a witness. There's video. There are analyses. There's also a collision with my meds that doesn't happen by chance. Today, I'm doing what any rational person does, cutting fire off from the trees. Rob, Serena leaned in. We only wanted, you've worked so hard. We thought a little rest. I call things by their names, I said. I want to hear what names you use. Marcus lifted his eyes. No tears. Arithmetic. He's my son after all. He always counts. May we see this witness? He asked. Cool. Tomorrow, Diana said. All business. Today is simple. Access to the apartment is revoked. Banks separate. Any financial action in his name? 0. Communication through me. If you want the police, we'll go with you, but we aren't rushing. We're collecting and we're recording every word. Serena nodded like someone agreeing with the weather. Marcus looked at me like a problem with new variables. You don't have to do this, he said. I do, I said. Because I'm alive. I'd like to stay that way. We sat longer than comfort allows. Diana closed the meeting the way she does when the thing has already done its work. At the door, Marcus paused. "Dad," he said softer. "You know, I've always been on your side." I looked at him and felt something rise that wasn't anger or regret. "A story I won't tell myself anymore." "I know what side you're on," I said. "Today I know exactly." They left. The door latched. Diana lowered her shoulders 2 millimeters. "The fire brakes are in," she said. "Next, wires and wheels." "Tomorrow," I said. "Today I want to walk." "Where?" "Where trees don't have plaques," I said. "I need to remind myself what this is for." I took my coat, the thin folder, and for the first time in a long while, didn't feel like I was fleeing. I was just not letting the fire cross the road. By morning, the city had the washed look of dishes left to dry. I took it as permission. Today wasn't for polish. Today was for plumbing, for the pipes under the floor that decide what flows where when the upstairs catches fire. Diana met me with a stack of paper that could stop a door. "Sequence matters," she said. "We wire first, then we write. Move the current before we reroute the river." "I brought the folder," I said. "You brought your spine," she answered, which is the kind of compliment I accept from her. The escrows sat there like a quiet lake. The sale proceeds, waiting for instructions that would change the shape of every shoreline in my life. Diana had arranged a conference call that began with 3 people and ended with 6 because money attracts witnesses. My job was simple. Say yes to numbers and no to doubt. The funds will go to a segregated account titled to Council ITA, the disembodied banker said. From there, we'll execute wires per your attorney's written instructions. Good, I said. We move in 2 trenches. One to a new trust account, one to a charitable vehicle we're forming today. Name of the charitable entity, he asked. The Astor Foundation, I said, and watched Diana's eyes lift. Catherine planted asters behind every apartment we ever left. She said the flowers forgave a season by blooming at its end. Understood, the banker said, understanding nothing, which is his craft. We will require beneficiary documentation, governance docs, and EIN upon receipt. You'll have what you need, Diana said. For now, memo the wires and stand by. Stand by. Money understands that language. It can sit as still as a cat until you point at the door. When the call ended, Diana slid a different stack across the table. The trust, she said. Irrevocable now with teeth you can grow. I don't want to be vindictive, I said. Good, she said. This isn't a weapon. It's insulation. Independent trustee, distributions for health, education, maintenance, support. You may appoint an investment advisor if you want control without reach. Independent trustee, I repeated. Not family. Not family, she said. And the word felt like a new kind of grief. We worked in a rhythm that felt like a clean operating theater. She spoke, I initialed, she explained, I signed. The clauses added up to a simple sentence. The fortune would outlive my worst day and my son's. I could live with that. Halfway through, the power flickered. Not in the room, in the plan. A junior associate hurried in with a folder and the careful panic of someone who knows the difference between news and noise. Apologies, he said to Diana. We pulled beneficiary designations on all known accounts. 3 retirement plans list your son as primary, Serena as contingent. 2 brokerage accounts have POD to him as well. Those bypass the will. I looked at the list and I recognized my own signatures from 15 years ago. Back then, the forms felt like kindness. Back then, the future was a family dinner we'd always make. Diana set the papers between us like a third participant. These designations run outside any will or trust, she said. They're a river that ignores the dam. We can change them, but not retroactively. If something happened to you last night, she didn't finish the sentence. She's kind enough to let a man hear his own echo. Change them, I said. Today we will, she said, already marking. But there's more. One of the brokerage accounts has transfer on death to a family LLC you set up years ago. Manager is your son. I remembered the day we signed that one. He'd been so proud to see his name next to mine. Pride can be a solvent if you pour it in the right place. Shut the LLC out, I said. Freeze authority until we restructure. If I need to file a manager removal, I will. You will, Diana said. The associate hovered. Also, your life insurance beneficiary is the Ashford Family Trust, the old one. Guess who the successor trustee is? I didn't need to guess. I could see the old paper in my head, the font, the witnesses, the way I'd thought I was being practical. Practicality is a poor prophet. We decant, Diana said, already writing. We move those assets into the new trust once the beneficiaries are updated. For the insurance, we file an immediate change to name the Astor Foundation primary, the new trust contingent. That will look like a message, I said. It is one, she said. The right kind. I signed. The pen felt heavier than it should. Somewhere between ink and intention, a hinge turned. The wires went out in the early afternoon. A banker's voice confirmed amounts in the way men read names off a memorial. Careful, public, and with a hint of disbelief. The trust account received the first tranche. The second waited in escrow for the foundation's birth certificate. Birth certificates take time, unless a certain kind of lawyer asks for a certain kind of favor. Diana knew which kind. By 3, the Astor Foundation had an EIN and a draft purpose clause that would have made Catherine smile. Education, trees, unglamorous grants that keep food pantries open after the photos are taken. I'm not trying to make a statue, I told Diana. I'm trying to make shade. Then let's plant, she said. We filed the beneficiary changes electronically where we could, by fax where we had to, by courier where institutions insist the century hasn't changed. At each step, I felt the past slipping its hand off my shoulder. It didn't want to go. I didn't blame it. Between documents, my phone chirped with the sing-song voice of leverage trying to get born from Marcus. Lawyers? Really? I'm outside the apartment. Concierge says I'm blocked. Open up or we'll make this ugly. I forwarded the message to Diana. She sent 2 words back. Document. Ignore. Another ping a minute later from an unknown number. A photo of my door, my peephole like a blank eye. The caption, "You can't live like this." I turned my phone face down. There's a freedom in refusing to let a message set your pulse. Everything all right? Diana asked. Everything is exactly what it needs to be for me to keep breathing, I said. She nodded. Then keep signing. At 4, we hit another ridge in the terrain. The retirement plan administrator wanted a medallion signature guarantee, which is a relic of a time when people believed stamps meant character. The nearest bank willing to issue one wanted me in person. I'll go, I said. You'll go with a shadow, Diana said, already texting. Jensen and Matthews, discreet. Think of them as new locks you wear. I don't like entourages. They make the air around you dishonest. But I like the idea of being alive more. We walked the 2 blocks in a quiet line. The sun was out, but the day felt grey. Grey like offices. Grey like the underside of dollars. Inside, a notary with a nurse's patience guided me through a ritual that felt like a ceremony if you imagined hard enough. The medallion stamp landed with a pressure that traveled up my bone. It's a small thing, a seal, a green pattern, but sometimes the difference between a life and a headline is a small thing. On the way out, I saw Serena across the street, half in shadow, sunglasses too large for the weather. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the men beside me. The way you study a door you don't think you can open. I didn't wave. She didn't either. For a moment, we were 2 people who might have liked each other in a different novel. Back upstairs, Diana reviewed the stack like a conductor glancing through a score before raising her hands. That's the last of the immediate leaks, she said. Now, the part that will feel like both medicine and mercy. The letter of wishes, I said. And the will that points to the trust, she said, plus instructions for the foundation, mission, governance, grant-making. You can haunt the living in 2 ways. With your absence or with your intentions. I vote for the second. I thought about the people who gave me my first break. A supervisor who looked the other way when I built something after hours. A landlord who told me I could pay the rent on the 5th. Not the 1st. Not angels, just citizens. Maybe that's all a foundation should manufacture. We wrote for the foundation. No naming rights to anything louder than a bench. Preference for projects that plant trees and keep kids fed. Skepticism toward galas. For the trust. Distributions to my son not in cash but in care. Therapy if he wants it. Education if he earns it. Support if he proves he needs it. No punishment. No reward for proximity, incentives for purpose. Diana paused at one clause. This one will hurt him, she said gently. The spendthrift provision. He won't be able to pledge or borrow against your support. He's been borrowing against me for years, I said. This just makes it honest. We added an independent trustee with a conscience and a backbone. Not Diana. That would unbalance too much. A woman she recommended, older than me, who ran a hospital's endowment without confusing kindness with softness. I liked her on paper. Will you tell him about the foundation? Diana asked. Yes, I said. And about the bench with no plaque. She smiled. That part will make you look sentimental. I said. I'm just building guardrails around it. By early evening, the Astor Foundation had a bank account and a modest sum sitting in it that would have been immodest on any other day. The rest waited behind signatures and stamps and the slow choreography of institutions. That was fine. I didn't need everything today. I just needed direction. Graham called, not to interfere, but to check the human temperature. Robert, how are you holding up? I've had easier weeks, I said. But the company is on course. This is personal. I assumed as much when your counsel reached out, he said. Take whatever time you need. We'll adapt the transition plan to your availability. My team can handle more of the load. There's a kind of grace in a man who can say we'll handle more without implying you failed. Thank you, I said. I admired your code before I admired your company, he said. Clean. You can read a life in that. After we rang off, I watched the light leave the sky. The city didn't notice me, which is a kind of love, I understand. Diana gathered the last documents for the day and tapped them into alignment. An oddly satisfying sound. We've done enough for a first cut, she said. Tomorrow we finish the beneficiary updates and file the new will. Tonight you sleep somewhere with a name only you know. I will, I said. One more thing before I go. She raised an eyebrow. I want a letter to my son, I said. Not an explanation, a map, something he can read later if he chooses to be a different man. Draft it, she said, and bring it tomorrow. We'll lodge it with the trust. It's not legally binding, but hearts don't read statutes. I nodded. The room had the close warm feel of a theater after the audience leaves. Work done, dust suspended, breath still in the walls. I walked instead of riding because I needed to feel my feet make a case to the pavement. 2 blocks became 10. The night found its clarity. I thought of the first time Catherine and I bought a tree together. A thin little thing from a sidewalk vendor, roots wrapped in fabric, leaves dusty with the city. We carried it like a secret up 3 flights and into a borrowed pot. It lived longer than that lease did. Back at the anonymous hotel, I wrote by hand. The letter didn't try to make a villain. It didn't appoint a hero. It said what happened in crisp nouns and what I decided in clean verbs. It admitted to the places where pride made me lazy. It named the foundation, the trust, and a bench without a plaque. It ended with a sentence I hadn't expected. You can still build something with me, just not out of me. I sealed it and wrote his name on the front. Not son, his name. Names are for adults, not roles. I slept early and badly and woke before dawn with the taste of ink and the sound of stamps still in my hands. Somewhere a machine moved money because I'd asked it to. Somewhere else, paper moved because I'd asked it to stop. I lay there and counted my breaths the way you count the seconds after lightning until the thunder tells you how far away the storm is. The storm had moved out a little. Not gone, farther. Sometimes that's victory. Before the sun showed its edge, I called the number on the foundation paperwork and listened to a recording that listed office hours and a cheerful promise to return calls. I left a message anyway. This is Robert Ashford, I said. I'm calling about a beginning. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. If you tilt your head just right, you can see a sky in stippled plaster. If you listen just right, you can hear trees where there are none. Tomorrow, There would be more signatures and more small dignities to earn. Tomorrow I would hand Diana the letter and a list of grants I wanted to test. A food pantry I passed every week. A little program that puts laptops in hands that can turn them into ladders. A group that plants actual trees along an unfashionable strip of road nobody photographs. Tomorrow I might see my son's face again and fail or succeed at saying what I needed to say without adding sugar. Tonight I had a trust with teeth, a foundation with a name that meant something only to 3 people, one of whom was no longer alive, and wires humming under the floor that would keep the upstairs from flooding my life. It wasn't peace, but it was plumbing. And for the first time in a long time, when I turned the handle, something clean came out. I returned to Skyline Terrace just before sunset, the hour when a city forgives itself for the day. Mr. Torres spotted me at the host stand, the way men in his trade spot trouble before it learns its name. "Back so soon, Mr. Ashford." "Back on purpose," I said. "Same table by the rail if it's free. And thank you again." He nodded once, not letting the gratitude land too heavily. "We've kept the footage on a drive," he said. "Chain of custody paperwork ready if you need it." "I may need only your eyes and your name," I said, "but it's good to know the rest exists." He placed me by the rail. Lanterns were maps again. The quartet tuned in soft question marks. I drank water. I set 2 envelopes on the linen, heavy with paper and decision, A and B. I don't enjoy theater, but sometimes truth needs a stage to keep everyone honest. At 7:02, Marcus and Serena arrived as if they'd been practicing punctuality in a mirror. He wore a contrite expression with sharp edges. She wore a smile that promised to fix what it had quietly broken. "Dad," he said, leaning in for a hug he didn't commit to. We appreciate the invite." "It's a meeting," I said. "Sit." They Saturday. Serena placed a small notebook by her water, pen ready to make history behave. "I wanted a place where nobody could accuse anyone of raising their voice," I said. "This room seems to prefer chords to shouting." Serena found a laugh that didn't wake the tableware. "We all want the same thing, Rob." "That's the first disagreement of the evening," I said. The waiter arrived, grateful for any conversation that can be solved with menus. I ordered food simple enough to be unpoisonable by design. They ordered wine. I didn't. "Before we talk," Serena said, "I just need to say last night was confusing. You left abruptly. You've been stressed. We were worried about your heart. Marcus put a few drops of a sleep aid in your juice. Over the counter. Clumsy, yes. But we meant well." She had rehearsed it. The words made a soft landing. The way a lie learns to tuck its knees. I set a thin folder on the table parallel to the grain. "The lab found a short-acting benzodiazepine," I said. "And warfarin. I don't keep either in my home. I don't put either in my body on purpose. Warfarin plus my meds isn't a sleep aid. It's a bet." Marcus's jaw worked once like a machine that wants to start but can't find the switch. "Who talks about warfarin at dinner?" he said, smiling toward charm and landing short. "You read something online, Dad." "And now, not online," I said. "A report, chain of custody, signatures. It would survive a courtroom. It will definitely survive a restaurant." He stared at the folder, but didn't touch it. Serena reached a finger toward it as if it were a thermostat she might adjust. "Stop there," I said. "You don't get to handle my proof." The quartet drifted into a standard. The room let the music be the thing you heard if you weren't at our table. Marcus leaned back as if distance could make him taller. "We were going to suggest a solution," he said. "We brought someone to help." He raised a hand. A woman stood from a nearby table and approached. Notebook of a different brand. Posture of a professional used to being invited into your liability. "Mr. Ashford," she said. "I'm Ms. Brennan, a geriatric care manager. Your family asked me to consult about some concerns. Forgetfulness, paranoia, recent overreactions." Serena kept her eyes soft. "Just to start a conversation, Rob." Midway through, they'd moved the furniture. My dinner had become an intervention. "Not tonight," I said. Ms. Brennan opened her mouth like a door she was sure would swing. "Sometimes a neutral assessment, not tonight," I repeated and turned to the rail. "Mr. Torres." He arrived as if he'd been staged, which he had, only by experience. Hands folded, voice the right size for a room that liked to hear itself. These people are suggesting I imagine something, I said. Would you please say what you saw? He didn't look at Marcus. He looked at me and then at the table, neutral as a scale. I observed the young man add liquid from a small vial to your glass while you were watching the band, he said. I informed you immediately. We preserved footage and provided a copy to you as you requested. And would you say that again if a police officer asked? Yes, he said. Serena inhaled like someone stepping into cold water. Marcus let the smile go. For a second, I saw the boy who used to disassemble remote controls to learn where volume came from. You're making a scene, Marcus said quietly. I'm describing a scene, I said. You made it. Ms. Brennan looked down at her notebook and discovered it had nothing to write. I didn't mean harm, Marcus said, the sentence people use when they don't want to name the harm they meant. I know exactly what you meant, I said. You wanted me compromised and compliant. A signature here, a trusted party there. You wanted a version of me that couldn't say no. I am saying no. Serena adjusted nothing on the table and called it poise. Then what is this dinner for? The terms, I said, and slid the 2 envelopes toward the edge of the linen. A or B? A is police today. I file a criminal complaint with the evidence I have. Witness, video, lab. You hire a lawyer and explain the difference between a prank and a felony. The music in the room found a minor chord and held it politely. And B? Marcus asked, throat tight. B is boundaries, I said. You accept in writing the structure already in motion. You acknowledge the revocations and the locks. You agree to no direct asks for money ever. You acknowledge that distributions, if any, come through an independent trustee under criteria you don't control. That's punishment. Serena said. It's governance, I said. If you choose B, we add one condition. Therapy for both of you, not the kind that writes prescriptions for other people. You pick the practitioner from a list my counsel approves. You show up for a year. Marcus tried to laugh and failed. A year with homework. You like homework, I said. You've been giving me the same assignment for a decade. He glanced at Serena the way a gambler glances at a door. She didn't move. Ms. Brennan had done the math and was already returning to her table, dignity intact, invoice assured. And what do we get? Serena asked. You get time, I said. You get not being in a court record for now. You get a letter I wrote you, Marcus. Not an apology, not a sermon, a map if you want one. I tapped envelope B. It's inside. And if we pick A, Marcus said. Then you get a different kind of time, I said. Measured in arraignments. The waiter arrived with plates we hadn't earned. Hovered, retreated. The world continued feeding other people. Good. Marcus took the A envelope, weighed it, set it down like a hand grenade he wanted to be seen not dropping. He picked up B and felt its weight like a man surprised by paper. I want to see the video, he said. Last stand. You will, I said, in a room with my attorney present tomorrow morning at 9. And if we don't come, Serena asked. Then my counsel delivers envelope A to the right desk at 10 o'clock, I said. I'll be at the park. She almost smiled. Which park? The one without plaques, I said. Midway through the room, the quartet took a turn that sounded like light finding a wall. The restaurant did not care who I was. That helped. Marcus exhaled like he'd been saving air. You're really doing this? I already did it, I said. Tonight is me telling you. He looked at Mr. Torres, who had not left. Because men like him don't leave when the story they witnessed is still being told. You could have come to me, Marcus said to him. Sudden heat misdirected. You didn't have to embarrass us. I came to the person whose glass was on the table, Mr. Torres said. That was my job. You see, Serena said to me softly, pivoting to remorse like a dancer who wants credit for stopping. We've both handled this badly. Incorrect, I said. You handled it. I survived it. I took a small bite of food because it was there and because a man shouldn't let decisions taste only of metal. I'll give you until 8 to decide which envelope you're taking, I said, checking my watch. After that, Whatever's left on the table goes to my lawyer. Eat if you're hungry. I'm paid up. Marcus folded his hands as if for prayer and found nothing to say. Serena studied me the way you study a door you can't open and blame for being there. May I ask you something? She said finally. Why here? Because this place told the truth last night, I said. I wanted it to hear me return the favor. I stood. Mr. Torres, I said, the staff kept me alive. I'd like to thank them properly. He started to demur. I left a gratuity the size of an apology to the universe for not seeing sooner. His eyes did not widen. Professionals don't let money change their pupils. Sir, he said instead, if you ever need a reference, you have mine. I know, I said. I looked at my son. He looked older than yesterday, which is a sentence that shouldn't be true for either of us. You can still build something with me, I said. Just not out of me. It landed between us exactly as I wrote it the night before. True and insufficient. Like most good lines. I left them with the music and the envelopes and the decision that always belongs to the younger person in the room. Outside, the air was the right temperature for distance. I walked 3 blocks without naming a single building and felt the quiet do what it does when you stop feeding it fear. At the corner, my phone buzzed. A message from Diana. Standing by. Do you need me there? I texted back, no, they have the terms. A second later, proud of the plumbing. That made me smile. I cut through a small square where the city had planted trees too close together and then forgot them. A happy mistake. Leaves made a roof for strangers. No plaques, just shade. I sat on a bench without a name and let the day walk past like a parade that didn't need me. At 8:07, my phone lit from Marcus. Be one letter, then almost immediately will be at 9. I stared at the 2 messages and understood that decisions don't fix people. They just give them a chance to meet themselves later. I typed, received. Bring no one but yourselves. Will there be forgiveness? Came back. Not from him. From the number I'd learned to label as Serena. After honesty, I wrote. Not before. I watched the typing bubble start, wobble, disappear. The world is full of unfinished sentences. I pocketed the phone and leaned back. A man in a suit on a nameless bench listening to traffic in a key that belongs to no one. Somewhere behind me, a restaurant turned down its lights. Somewhere ahead, a morning waited with cables and paper, and for once, a room where the truth had chairs. I stood and took the long way to the hotel. The air cooled another degree. My steps felt like statements rather than questions. If anyone watched, they saw an older man walking alone, which is one of the few dignities age offers when you take it. On the nightstand, I placed the watch, the letter, and a pen. I poured water and let it be water. I turned off the lamp and let the dark be dark. Not a blank, but a color. I had not won, I had not lost. I had brought a fire to a place with sprinklers. Sometimes that's the shape of mercy you can manage. The hotel room held its shape the way a held breath does. I set the watch on the nightstand, the pen beside it, the letter to my son between them like a small bridge. I told myself to sleep. My body said, you first. At 12:41 a.m., the phone flashed Mr. Patel's number for my building, the one I wasn't in. Mr. Ashford, apologies, he said, already measured. 2 individuals at your door with a locksmith. They say emergency maintenance. Our protocol flagged the work order. None requested. Your private security is with them now. Shall I call the police? Call, I said. He patched the hallway camera to my phone. A lag and then my own doorway appeared in my hand. New deadbolts in the frame. Blue painter's tape still clinging to the strike plate. Marcus was there in a jacket he wears when he wants to look like someone's boss. Serena had her sunglasses on at night. Always a tell. The third man had a rollout kit, the portable mouth of a small metal creature. You don't have authorization, Jensen said calmly, standing between the man and my door. Maintenance only with work orders. He's elderly, Serena said, finding a statute in her voice. We're worried. I'm employed by the elderly in question, Jensen said. Marcus glanced up at the eye of the camera and then away. Old habit for me. Never look where the power is. The locksmith put his hands up a fraction. A man who knows which side of a door pays him. He began to pack slowly for dignity. Serena whispered something sharp. Marcus didn't answer. When building security asked them to leave, Marcus managed a stiff courtesy. Serena pulled the elevator button like it owed her money. "Thank you," I told Mr. Patel. "We'll sweep the floor, sir," he said. "That won't change the wind," I said. He didn't ask me to explain. I lay down and watched the ceiling try to be a sky. Across town, the locks I'd bought did their small, important job without adjectives. I should have felt safer. Instead, I felt old, which is not the same thing. At 1:27, a text from a number claiming to be no one. "If you insist on making this ugly, we'll petition for guardianship. You're not well. Paperwork is easy. Judges are tired. Choose peace." It's interesting. The words people choose when they want to take your life away politely. Peace is one of them. Security is another. I forwarded the text to Diana with the time and the number. Her reply came faster than sleep. "Logged. Keep your phone on. You're not alone." At 2:03, a second message, this time from a messenger service with an attachment labeled incident report.pdf. I opened it. It was a complaint drafted to read like concern and smell like gasoline. Disorientation, paranoia, possible substance misuse, financial exploitation by third parties. There's a kind of prose that pretends to be neutral while offering your bones as kindling. I saved it because evidence is just as beautiful when it's ugly. I stood by the window and counted red lights humming under fog. Little planets waiting for permission to be green. Somewhere below, a truck released its brakes with the sound of a sigh. I put my palms on the glass. Cool. Honest. I called the number Diana had given me for emergencies that refused to remember what hours mean. She answered before the second ring. "You won't like the timestamp," I said. "I'm not a person who likes timestamps," she said. "I'm a person who uses them." "Did they try the door with a friend?" "It's recorded." "Good. We'll fold the attempt into our file with the lab, the footage, and the texts. If they file anything ex parte in the morning, I'll be in a judge's inbox before a clerk finds coffee." "Do judges drink coffee?" I asked. "They drink schedule," she said. "And they don't like people who spill it. Leave the rest to me." "And rob it?" "Yes. Don't open any doors." I promised nothing out loud. I set a chair against my own hotel door anyway, not because it would stop anyone determined, but because it told me which way I wanted the night to go. At 3:01 a.m., someone knocked. 2 measured taps. The way professionals knock when they want to be invited into your liability. "Who is it?" I asked, not standing up. "Front desk," a voice said. "2 visitors requesting you by name." "My name on the room isn't my name," I said. "That's what makes this interesting," the voice said. "Less hotel now, more human." "They are insistent." "Tell them the guest they're looking for chose sleep," I said. "If they persist, offer them a seat in the lobby with a camera that works. I'll make time at 9, not 3. The pause told me the clerk approved of boundaries. Understood. Silence returned, the heavy kind that audiences mistake for quiet after a play stops. I breathed in it until a third knock came. Closer, more personal. The hall's carpet swallowing footsteps and doubt. I lifted the peephole cover. Marcus alone. "Dad, please," he said, not too loud. "We have to talk off the record." There's a temptation in any father to believe the son when he deploys the word please like a small white flag. I redirected the temptation through a better circuit, the one that powers the locks you can trust. "Say it through the door," I said. He glanced up toward the hallway camera. "Really?" He looked like a boy told to apologize through a classroom window. Then he put his hands in his pockets and raised his voice just enough for the microphone to earn its keep. "This is out of control," he said. "You're making it bigger than it was." "It was warfarin," I said. "It was big when you shook the vial." He closed his eyes a second. I didn't. He didn't finish the line. "Smart. Men get in trouble finishing lines." "You texted B," I said. "You agreed to the terms. You're here to amend them at 3 o'clock in the morning." "That's not smart. You're going to blow up your own sale," he said, shifting to the angle he thought would bite. Buyers don't like men who make public scenes. Stability of founder. Continuity of leadership. One whisper and your 43 looks like 38 when the market wakes up. You think he'll ride that? You don't have to have run a company to know how much this kind of sentence costs to assemble. I have, and I can tell you. He'd been rehearsing it since dinner. Graham doesn't buy whispers, I said. He buys code and clean books. He knows the difference between a family story and a balance sheet. There are other whispers, Marcus said. About you, the cardiologist, he didn't have the nerve to finish that one either. Brave men finish. Honest ones don't start. This is late. I said. Your threats have the wrong time zone. He put his forehead to the door frame like he wanted some of me without contact. I'm not threatening. He said. You're negotiating with a fire, I said. It doesn't take deals, it takes fuel. I came to say, he stopped. Say it, I said. He swallowed. I came to say I can't do 9. Of all the sentences he could have chosen, that one surprised me by being small. You just did 3, I said. 9 should be easy. Her lawyer, he said. He says don't meet without counsel. He says we should file first. Her lawyer is smart, I said. You should get one of those. He leaned back. You don't want me to get a lawyer. I want you to get a mirror, I said. The lawyer can hold it if your hands shake. He was quiet long enough for the carpet to make a point about patience. Then he did a thing I didn't expect. He slid down the wall to a sit, knees up, the way boys do in high schools after someone breaks their name across the loudspeaker. Tell me what happens if I pick A, he said, voice smaller. You stand up in a room and say a version, I said. I stand up and say the truth. Evidence stands up by itself. You learn that trials compose a song you don't get to title. Your mother's friends read about it. People with long memories remember you differently. The sale goes through without your name anywhere that matters. The foundation grows without you. My voice gets used more on paper and less on you. None of it is a threat. It's a weather report. He let his head hit the wall softly. You write weather reports now. I always did, I said. Shipping forecasts, storms. I just called them release notes. He laughed once without joy. You have a metaphor for everything. I have a life for everything, I said. The metaphors come later. He looked at the camera again. The lens looked back. Professional. For a moment, he just breathed. And if you strip the titles from our faces, we were 2 men on different sides of a door agreeing on oxygen. Dad, he said, I'm sorry. He meant that sentence precisely as far as he could throw it. People underestimate the distance of their own words. I gave him the dignity of taking it exactly that far. I heard you, I said. He stood. If we come at 9 o'clock, he said, will you not call the police? You already came at 3 o'clock, I said. That counted as one of your mistakes for today. You have fewer left. Serena's heels clicked at the end of the hall. She came around the corner faster than Grace travels. When she saw him on his feet, she slowed into poise. When she saw the camera, she added sincerity like a garnish. Rob, she called softly. Marcus, we should go. We should, I said through the door. She came closer than a woman with good sense should. You look tired, she said to the wood. You look like you practiced this, I said. Go home. We can fix this, she said. And for the first time all night, her voice decided to mean it. We pick B. We do the therapy. We sign the paper. You show up, I said. You show up not as people who want a different father. As people who want a different self. You won't like it. You'll be sore where a better life grows. You'll want to quit. You'll decide not to. That's B. And you? Marcus asked. I put my phone down when you text at midnight, I said. I don't answer my door at 3 o'clock. I stopped mistaking my hope for your character. That's my B. For a while, we lived in a still photograph, the 3 of us, and a door and a camera and a hallway light that hummed like an old idea. Then the elevator arrived with a soft bell that sounded like a chance. Serena touched Marcus's sleeve. He didn't pull away. Small mercies count if you haven't had any all week. He looked at the peephole once more like a boy checks under a bed he knows is empty. And then he nodded. 9, he said. We'll come at 9 o'clock. And you'll leave now, I said. He half saluted the lens without conviction. They walked toward the elevator, the kind of couple you could misread in a hotel at 3 a.m. beautiful, tired, not yet honest. The doors closed on their reflections, and for once the hall stayed quiet after a decision left it. I eased the chair back from the door and sat in it, the way you sit after you've been the most adult person in a building. My phone buzzed. Diana again. Status. I typed back. Tried the door. Left. 9 is on. Her reply. Copy. The police report is drafted and timestamped. Your choice to file, not mine. I stared at the words, your choice, and felt the weight shift in the room from threat to responsibility, which is just a threat you can respect. I put on shoes and walked to the ice machine, not because I needed ice, but because moving my knees is half of staying alive. A man in a robe nodded at me as if we were both members of a quiet club. We are. Back in the room, I opened the letter I'd written and added a line. The line I hadn't earned until a door at 3. If you want forgiveness, bring a fact. I sealed it again and wrote his name again so the ink would remember. At 4:15, the city began to make its morning noises. The ones construction crews know by heart. I lay down and finally slept. The kind of sleep you get after making a choice without a witness. It didn't last long. It didn't need to. At 6:42, I woke to a soft knock. Housekeeping, doing a job at a kind hour. The day was already brighter than men my age like to admit. I shaved slowly because speed breeds blood. I tied the tie I wear to meetings where no one is allowed to lie. I sent Graham a short message. Meeting at 9, unrelated to transition. All good on our side. His reply landed with the steadiness of a man who measures twice. Take your time. We're ready. I checked the camera feed at my apartment. An empty hallway, dignified. The new locks looked like they trusted themselves. I looked like a man who could try that, too. Before leaving, I built one last small structure. A folder on my desktop labeled if. In it, a copy of the lab report, a scan of Mr. Torres's statement, the hallway video, the 3 texts, a note in my hand about 9 p.m. and 2 envelopes, and a simple letter that said, if anything happens to me, deliver this to the right desk and to the buyer. I shared the folder with Diana and with a name at Westfield Systems that wasn't Graham so nobody could call it drama. Call it plumbing again. A different kind. Water knows where to go when the pipes are honest. I picked up the watch and buckled it on the way a man buckles on time when he wants it to behave. I took the letter. I locked the hotel room door and tugged just to feel the clicker's news. In the elevator, I was alone with the mirror and didn't look away. The lobby smelled like coffee that had learned patience. Outside, traffic negotiated itself without judges, which is more than most families manage. I walked to Diana's office the long way. A breeze had found the space between 2 buildings, and decided to live there a moment. On a small, unfashionable street, a crew in orange vests planted a young tree into dirt a developer hadn't gotten around to naming. One guy patted the soil with his boot like he was telling the ground a story. Good morning, he said to nobody and everyone. It is, I said, and helped with the corner of the burlap without making a lecture of it. By the time I reached the lobby, my legs had made a case to my heart that today would be a day men could do without shame. The guard at the desk nodded the way guards nod to men who slept. 9 o'clock, the receptionist asked. 9, I said. They're already here, she said, and tilted her head toward a pair of chairs where 2 people sat close together, holding the air between them like a fragile plate. Neither wore sunglasses. Both looked like they might pick up the right pen if you handed it to them. I smiled at them the way I used to smile at a team before the last set of tests. We can still ship something clean today. It won't fix the past. It will make the next version better. Diana opened the door to the conference room. Ready? She asked. Ready, I said. The night had failed to change my mind. That's what I wanted from it. 9 a.m. looks different when you've already lived a day in the dark. Diana's conference room had the clean light of a place that prefers paper to drama. 2 chairs on one side, 2 on the other, a monitor at the end of the table, a carafe of water no one would touch. Good morning, Diana said. She makes morning sound like a boundary, not a greeting. Marcus nodded. Serena folded her hands on a legal pad as if prayer could be notarized. We'll keep this simple, Diana said. We'll review the video, memorialize yesterday's option B, and enter a stipulation regarding access, communication, and therapy. If at any point you prefer counsel present, we'll pause. We're fine, Marcus said. The way people say fine when they've run out of better costumes. The screen woke. Mr. Torres's angle was clean. My table, the dance floor, my son's shoulders squared to the room. We watched without commentary, which is the right way to let truth work. Marcus leaned forward. Serena stopped breathing for 4 minutes, then remembered how. When the vial flashed, small as a lie and twice as bright, no one spoke. When I walked back into frame later and didn't drink, no one clapped. When Jensen and Matthews approached me, Diana hit pause. This recording, she said, is part of a package that includes a lab report and chain of custody. I don't need you to concede anything today. I need you to understand that option A would have moved quickly. Marcus nodded once. The nod men use when they finally read a sign they've been pretending wasn't there. We pick B, he said. He didn't look at Serena first. Progress of the lurching kind. Diana slid papers across. Then we write, she said. The stipulation was a short thing that did long work. No entry to my home. No direct asks for money. Communication through counsel. Therapy weekly for 12 months with a practitioner from a list. Attendance verified. No disparagement. No guardianship petitions without medical basis. No midnight negotiations through doors. The trust's spendthrift clause sat beside it like a quiet chaperone. Distributions at a trustee's discretion for health, education, maintenance, support. No pledging, no borrowing, no leverage. This reads like punishment, Serena said, finding her line. It reads like insulation, Diana said. Punishment is loud. Insulation is effective. I set a single envelope on the table. Not A or B. Those lived where they needed to. This one had a name on it. Written the way you write a name when you've decided to mean it. For you, I told Marcus, something I wrote last night. No instructions inside. If you open it, you open it. If you don't, you don't. He looked at the envelope like it might tell him who he is. He put a hand on it and left it sealed. Later, he said. Good, I said. Later is an honest time. We initialed and signed. Diana with that precise lawyer's choreography that makes ink look inevitable. At the signature line, Serena's pen hovered then touched down. I don't know if she'll keep these agreements better than the ones she makes with herself. That isn't my jurisdiction anymore. 2 more pieces, Diana said when the last page lay still. 1. Rob has placed all sale proceeds beyond the reach of heat. Escrow, trust, foundation. 2. You both acknowledge that any future contact about finances will be initiated by the trustee, not by you. They both nodded. They looked tired in a way that might turn into effort. Or not. Again. Not my jurisdiction. Marcus cleared his throat. I said something stupid at 3, he offered, careful now. About whispers. I'm sorry. You said several stupid things at 3, I said. This covers 1. He almost smiled and then decided he wasn't allowed to yet. Good instincts for once. Diana stood and the meeting ended the way good surgeries do. Nobody applauds. Everybody breathes. Mr. Torres's statement, Serena asked at the door, not quite managing neutral. On file, Diana said. So is the restraint. Don't confuse mercy with blindness. In the hall, they hesitated like tourists who haven't picked a map. Serena touched his sleeve. He didn't flinch. They left together. I let the door close and felt something I hadn't expected. Not victory, not relief. Just the weight of a tool put back in the drawer where it belongs. Diana gathered the papers into 2 stacks. What stays? What moves? You have 1 more call to make, she said. To whom? You tell me. I stared at the window. The city wore its ordinary face. No plaques from the night before. An old friend, I said. Good, she said. Make it. The friend is older than the company, older than the number on the term sheet, older than the watch on my wrist. He taught me to read hex dumps when they were the only love letters our machines could write. He hired me when my resume had more sincerity than proof. He once told me to go home at 2 a.m. and I didn't. He didn't fire me for that. He answered on the second ring. You sold, Leonard said, an accusation in our language that means congratulations. I did, I said. How are you holding up? Like a door that finally learned which way it swings. He laughed softly. You always were better with the hinges than the wood. I told him the version a friend gets, not the whole fire, just the heat. He listened the way men of his generation listen when another man brings him a truth he can respect. What now? He asked. I made a foundation, I said. Small on purpose. Asta. Asta, he repeated, softer. He met Catherine the night I met her. He knows why the name fits. What's it for? He asked. Shade, I said. The kind you don't have to name to sit under. Send me the number, he said. I have more money than patience. Thank you, I said, because Catherine taught me what that word costs and buys. Rob, he said before we hung up. Do the thing Catherine always made you do at the worst moments. What thing? Find a tree, stand under it, try to feel small. I looked at the clock. 10:30, time enough to obey. I walked northwest without naming streets. The city obliges men who want to arrive somewhere the map doesn't advertise. A strip where maintenance is a suggestion. A patch where a grounds crew ran out of budget. A corner where the wind belongs more to itself. There I found a row of young oaks in soil still new enough to smell like intent. I stood under one, tried to feel small, succeeded. Grief arrived like good weather, unpredictable and right. Not the kind that knocks you over, the kind that makes a promise you're finally ready to keep. I remembered Catherine in a cheap jacket on a cold morning, pointing at a vacant lot and saying, this could be anything if nobody tries to own it too hard. I remembered a photo of her next to a pot of asters on a sill we never kept for long. I remembered the letterhead we never designed because we preferred corners where names didn't matter. A bench nearby had no plaque. Saturday. The air did that ordinary miracle where it enters your body and leaves you alive. My phone buzzed once. A message from Graham. Transition plan updated. We've padded your side by 2 weeks. Family first. Code is patient. There's a grace to a man who trusts your life more than your legend. Thank you, I wrote back, and it meant both things. A second buzz, a text from an unknown number that wasn't unknown at all once you read the tone. Therapy 3 p.m. Wednesdays works. Do we tell you? I typed. You show up. Your counselor will confirm attendance to the trustee. That's all. After a minute, okay. Then the envelope. He put it unopened on his desk. He says later. Later is honest. I almost typed, but I didn't need to repeat myself. I sat with the quiet until it stopped trying to prove anything. A pair of kids practice soccer with a half-flat ball, which is better training than a perfect one. A woman walked a dog who had no interest in her route. A city worker checked a trash can and moved on. Civilization looks like that when you squint. People doing necessary things they won't be thanked for. I took out my notebook, the old analog kind that pretends to be immortal, and wrote 3 grants on a page. The pantry with the line around the block. The after-school program with laptops that become ladders. The crew that plants trees in unfashionable places where benches don't get plaques. Under that I wrote no galas. If a check requires a tuxedo, we wrote it wrong. I let the page dry. I let the day stay what it was. Not a victory lap, not a eulogy, a morning after. By early afternoon, I was back in Diana's office signing a last formal thing. The will that doesn't try to be poetry. She slid it into a folder and handed me a copy of the foundations in on paper that pretends to be important. You have board seats to fill, she said. I suggest people who prefer verbs to adjectives. I have 2 in mind, I said. 1 living, 1 gone. She didn't ask. Good lawyers know where silence belongs. Rest, she said at the door. That's not a legal instruction. It's professional advice. I'll try, I said. I hear trying counts now. It always did, she said. You just had other measures. Outside, the world had the audacity to keep happening. A bus is always late for someone. A light is always about to change. I walked the longer way back to the anonymous hotel and checked out by handing a key to Mr. Patel, who didn't need to know my name to wish me well. At home, the new locks took their job again, clean and firm. The apartment smelled like paper that found its purpose. I put the watch in the dish by the door and didn't feel superstitious about the sound it made. I set my phone face down on the counter and didn't feel hunted by its silence. I poured water and let it be water. I opened a window and let the air make its case. I stood where the light hit the floor in a perfect rectangle and didn't move out of it until the rectangle changed shape. Some afternoons that passes for wisdom. In the evening, an email arrived from the foundation's inbox. We had one now, a small mailbox in a small system, confirming the account and inviting a first meeting next week. I replied with the 3 grants and a note. We're not building a statue. We're planting shade. Before bed, I took the letter's carbon copy from my desk and read the last line again. The one I wrote because 3 a.m. had earned it. If you want forgiveness, bring a fact. I don't know when he'll open his copy. I only know that future men exist who will need present men to have written something down. I turned off lights in rooms I wasn't using, the way you do when you realize your life has more square footage than you need. I stood by the window and watched the city forget me, which is the best part of any city if you let it be. Somewhere a quartet tuned in a restaurant that told the truth last night. Somewhere Jensen ended a shift knowing he'd done his job. Somewhere a check cleared. Somewhere a tree survived a day without a plaque. I went to bed with the kind of tired that doesn't ask for permission. In the dark, Catherine's voice arrived the way it used to when I would overcomplicate the easy parts. Call it done, Rob, she would say. And then go do the next right small thing. So I did. I called it done. Not the love, not the damage, not the work that remains, but this part. Then I set an alarm for a reasonable hour because tomorrow I would take a train to a town with more trees than stories and sit on a bench without a name and think about a foundation that will fund shade for people who don't know my name and never should. It isn't redemption. That's a word for songs. It's something quieter. A life that fits in the morning.